Greetings, everyone. Warm welcome. It is an honor to have you here at the Saphira Center of Shamanism, where we break down the ancient esoteric practices of shamanism and the occult, bringing them into balance with the deep psyche. My name is Luke, experienced practitioner and mentor of the shamanic and occult sciences. It's an honor to have you here. Thank you for joining me once again. Be sure to find me over on Patreon. Second link in the description of this video if you have interest in working with me. You can gain access to this Patreon at just £20 per month, and you will find lots of potent exclusive content relating to shamanism and the occult. This content is intended for all levels. There is content for beginners, intermediate, and advanced. The beginners levels is very much focused towards expanding your vessel, helping you to process and metabolize more advanced energies. Intermediate is more focused around trauma integration, deep shadow work, and invocations, and advanced is anything from advanced occult initiation via the most powerful initiatory systems such as the Sephiroth, the Qliphoth, the Necronomicon Gnosis, and many, many other things that you can gain access to at just £20 per month. Be sure to check me out on Patreon. I look forward to seeing you over there. Today we are going to be discussing demonic trials. How demonic trials manifest in your life, whether you are a practitioner of the occult sciences or whether you are not a practitioner of the occult sciences, okay? Demonic trials is something that we all face, just the same as angelic trials. Two currents of energy that exist within us, yin and yang. Positively charged current is the angels, the negatively charged current is the daemons. Demonic trials are important to understand, particularly if you are wanting to get into daemon magic, daemonolatry, Qliphothic work, and do so sustainably. Many people interact with daemons, but don't actually know how their trials manifest within day-to-day life, at which point it can be difficult to actually get the most out of your interactions with demonic spirits, simply because you are not aware of how they are manifesting in your day-to-day. Daemons tend to be very tangible and normally do manifest in day-to-day life in quite tangible ways, synchronicities that are undeniable, and things like that, but they can also come through more subtly as well. A demonic trial is there to destabilize your ego. Not destroy your ego, but to destabilize reality. Demonic trials happen through rupture. So calling on a demonic spirit and welcoming it into your field, or calling on a Qliphothic sphere and welcoming it into your field, is going to initiate a transmutation process according to multiple factors. Your free will, which is letting the energy in, your true will, which defines what type of trial you go through, and how receptive you are to that given trial. What you will find is that a lot of demonic trials will manifest on the psychological level, which basically means that you will experience a lot of internal destabilization and paradoxical expansion in consciousness. This paradox comes through shattering, but then in doing so, that shattering of your identity then sets you free paradoxically, whereas angels tend to work more by reconfiguring your energy field, reconstruction, and helping you build in harmony with your truth and authenticity, whereas demonic trials operate through paradoxical liberation, meaning they have to shatter an aspect of you in order to help you grow. And what they shatter is what you no longer need, and what you no longer need is food for the demonic spirits. So basically, what you are offering to a demonic spirit is your falsehood, is your illusion. Where many people, many practitioners run into problems when working with daemons is when they are not taking accountability and when they are not willing to allow their ego to be challenged. And demonic trials are going to manifest in day-to-day life as challenging situations that are there to threaten your paradigm and illusions of safety. Okay, daemons are there to help you move into closer harmony with your soul and are there to basically help you dissolve the separation that is basically separating you from your truth and authenticity. So work with daemons, when I say proper work with daemons in terms of actually utilizing their trials properly in day-to-day life, is going to manifest in the form of situations that are there to challenge your ego, that are there to rupture an aspect of your sense of self. But what many practitioners do is basically ignore those trials, and then they can start to become more extreme as time goes on. Okay, with demonic trials, you can either take accountability straight away, or they will bring in deliberately challenging and rupturing situations to get you to destabilize one way or another. Okay, and what you are destabilizing is nothing that is in harmony with your true self. What you are destabilizing is simply your illusions, things that you have long outgrown. So, in order to get the most out of demonic trials, you have to be willing to have your ego challenged. If you're this type of person who is like, oh, I'm quite happy with things are how things are in my life. Oh, I don't want to grow anymore. Oh, I don't really want to have my ego challenged because I like things the way that they are. Then don't bother. It's that simple. Don't bother interacting with daemons if you don't actually want to be challenged. Okay, when I say be challenged, I mean protective mechanisms being dissolved, becoming more vulnerable, becoming less separated from the world around you. If you don't want to do this, then don't bother interacting with demonic spirits. It is really that simple. This work can get extremely destabilizing in quite a negative way if you are not willing to be challenged. Okay, and demonic trials are going to come through anything in your external world, be that a teacher, they can operate through a teacher, they can operate through other people, situations that are brought in to deliberately challenge you, no matter how big or small that is. So we're going to dive in to how demonic trials can manifest in your day-to-day life so that you can understand how to utilize them in a way that is sustainable for your evolution. So definitely stay tuned. Okay, so let's start by looking at how demonic trials manifest in your day-to-day life if you do not work with daemons consciously. Now, this works the same for any type of dark matter energy slash clifothic work. Okay, when I say clifothic work, I'm referring specifically to basically energy of the primordial chaos of dark matter, the dwelling place of daemons slash infernal spirits. So all forms of clifothic energy are going to have controlling aspects to them if you do not face them consciously. This is built off of the concept of the fact that your unconscious mind orchestrates your experience without you actually being aware of it, okay? Which is a total paradox to how a lot of us have actually been taught. We're taught that our conscious mind and our thoughts become things and our positivity shapes reality. It's what we're not looking at that shapes reality. And the spirits that are in resonance with the deepest aspects of your unconscious mind are daemons, okay? Infernals. The clifothic currents are mirrors of archetypes that you have within your unconscious mind. So, clifothic based programming and trials is going to have typically a more harmful effect when you don't face them consciously. It doesn't mean that daemons are out to get you, but it basically means that when you don't face what is within your unconscious mind consciously and properly and integrate, then it means that it's going to have more of a power over you and is actually going to fuel greater levels of separation. Again, it's an extreme paradox. So when you are facing daemons unconsciously in your day-to-day life, it's anything that is basically challenging you via separation, okay? Anything that is basically pushing you into deeper levels of separation. I've mentioned in previous videos how clifothic programming is woven into day-to-day life by actually encouraging greater separation. You can see the infernal currents as the exact same thing in a way. Unless you actually touch them consciously and you face them consciously, then typically how they function is more in the opposite way. When you face them consciously, you are tapping into them to basically gain them as your mentor to help you to liberate yourself from separation in order to ultimately integrate what that particular daemon represents. Whereas if you continue to ignore that archetype, just the same as if you continue to ignore your shadow and unconscious mind, then it's going to have the adverse effect. It's not going to liberate you, but it's actually going to shell you more within your identity structures. Okay, some people describe this shelling process as a demonic contract. Okay, a contract that is made unconsciously with a demonic entity or demonic entity that is basically there to separate you from things that you are not feeling safe to truly feel and embody. So basically what I'm saying is that the energy of dark matter and the primordial chaos, infernal energy slash cliffothic energy, has a negative impact, a bad impact on you unless you face it consciously. Okay, if you're facing it consciously and you're utilizing the energy to understand your separation, then you are triggering the opposite to what happens when you ignore it. Okay, so you face daemons consciously, you are opting into a liberation process and a cracking of your identity structures. Whereas demonic trials work in the complete opposite way. If you don't face them, they can actually weave greater levels of separation within the collective consciousness in order to help you to see beyond it. Okay, so that's how it manifests when you are not facing daemon slash cliffothic energy consciously. It has an adverse effect and causes you to basically become more separated from your deeper levels of vulnerability. But when you're facing them consciously, ultimately they are going to be your mentors in helping you to liberate yourself and integrate what that particular entity represents. Okay, and this can be a very powerful and transformative process when you are consciously liberating yourself via a specific demonic current. It's powerful and liberating if you don't project your stuff onto the spirits, in the sense of projecting parental wounds onto the spirits and saying, oh, this spirit said I can't do that, or that spirit said I can't do this. All of this is projection onto those given currents of energy and is you restricting yourself. It's also extremely transformative if you do not fall into greater separation. And this is a mistake that many people make when it comes to any form of cliffothic slash demonic alchemy. When you are facing demonic alchemy, you have a choice whether to fall into deeper levels of repression and fragmentation, or whether to actually liberate yourself and become more vulnerable. The daemons don't care. They're just going to dissolve what is there, what is illusionary within you, but it's up to you, up to your free will as to whether you hold on to that shell or try and reconstruct it in a different way. What happens with many people when they interact with daemons is that they deconstruct their illusion, but then what they do is that they then reconstruct their illusion in a different way. And this is how delusions can start through this, the classic spouse of Lilith thing, the classic son of Lucifer thing. It happens when the ego is then trying to reconstruct itself and reconstruct the separation in which the daemon took away. So it's an extremely transformative practice if you are willing to actually journey into the dark matter realms to understand your separation so that you don't fall into deeper levels of separation unconsciously. Now, how do demonic trials actually manifest in your day-to-day life when you start working with them? Okay, and it is important to realize that the demonic trials unfold in day-to-day life. The invocation slash ritual that you use to contact a demonic entity, bring it into your body or bring it into your life, the same with cliffothic energy, cliffothic spheres. The ritual is only the first point of interaction. Okay, again, big mistake that many people make. Many people, particularly newer practitioners, start working with loads of spirits, loads of daemons, one after the other after the other. And then what they're doing is that they're just tapping into all of these different currents of energy, and they're not aware that the real trials unfold in day-to-day life. Okay, situations that are there to challenge you. Okay, whereas say angelic trials, because they're focused on helping you to function within the multiverse and reconstruct your sense of self in harmony with your truth and authenticity, angelic trials tend to fade more and mold more into day-to-day life than demonic trials. Okay, and it's only what I'm saying here is that with angelic trials, it's harder to actually notice the trial when it's happening. It's only after, when you look back, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, no, that was actually deeply archetypal. I just didn't realize it at the time. Whereas demonic trials, yes, they can be subtle, but typically they come through more direct encounters and confrontations. Okay, and these confrontations have the very function of helping you to embark on the process of individuation. Okay, these very encounters have the very function of helping you to integrate that encounter instead of separating yourself from it. So for that reason, the mistake that many people make is that they say invoke a demonic spirit and they think, oh, I've invoked the spirit, that's good. Okay, people get attached to the fireworks, bringing all of these spirits in, tapping into their consciousness in different ways. But then they're not aware of how the trials unfold. Okay, they bring all of these spirits in and then they're being challenged by the external world in different ways. And then maybe they're not even noticing the challenge. Maybe they're dissociating from the challenge. Yeah, at which point the demonic energy can have a more harmful and more separating effect because you're not actually receptive to the trials that are actually taking place. And this is a very big problem for people who get into demonolatry related work, particularly qliphothic work. I see it all the time. People tapping into loads of spirits. They receive trials in day-to-day life, but they dissociate themselves from the pain of those trials, and then they actually fall deeper into separation, which is not the purpose of interacting with demonic entities from an evolutionary point of view. The purpose is to understand your separation, to integrate what that daemon represents, and not fall deeper into what that daemon represents, which is going to be separation at some capacity. Okay. These daemons are personifications. As I've explained in many videos, these are personifications of unprocessed things within you. Yes, they are external, very powerful multidimensional beings, expressions of raw, unregulated power that is not limited by the constraints of the multiverse. But they are personifications of what is unprocessed within you. And their personifications are the very image of those separated parts in which that daemon represents. For example, Asmodeus is going to represent a literal archetype of some of the most triggering aspects of humanity. Okay, the anger, the lust, the violation, the even like the purging of innocence, pedophilia, unacceptable desires, violent fantasies, all of these things. Asmodeus is a personification of all of these things in a way that is unique to the microcosm. So yes, he represents this on the collective in the macrocosm, but in the microcosm, in your form, in your body, he is going to mirror those specific archetypes within you and is going to evoke them. And then you have a choice. Do I then fall into deeper separation and then just try and dissociate myself from all of these uncomfortable feelings? Or do I actually use them, feel them, and integrate them? As that's what real daemonic alchemy is all about. Cracking the shell of separation and then ultimately integrating what is on the other side of that shell, okay? Cracking the shell of separation and integrating what is underneath. So understand that anybody can perform a ritual, anybody can perform an invocation, evocation, sphere working, whatever it is. It doesn't make you special in any way. Anybody can do that. Anybody can read a ritual script. Anybody can chant an N. Anybody can draw a sigil. What people struggle with is then what happens after. Okay, you can perform as many invocations as you want and probably be absolutely fine in the moment. But then the more you bring that energy into your consciousness, the more permission you are giving it to manifest in your day-to-day life. And this is why it's a problem when newer practitioners go from spirit to spirit to spirit to spirit to spirit, because what often happens is that they start to tap into the energy, they're bringing the energy down. Say, for example, if I start working with Belial, then I'm bringing Belial down. And what many people do is that as soon as the current starts to settle into their body, they then stop working with the spirit and then start working with another spirit. Okay, and this can be a problem, and it can keep somebody in a cycle because they've invoked the spirit. In other words, it's starting to come through and will manifest in day-to-day life at some capacity, but then they stop working with the spirit and then they start to distribute their attention to something else. Okay, and then they do the same with that spirit. Maybe they'll do like a few invocations of that spirit, not really get to know the spirit much at all, and then move on to the next one. At which point, they're not actually giving their system time to effectively metabolize and bring in the energy, and therefore they are not actually welcoming any trials that is brought by that given current of energy. How demonic trials work is that you invite the spirit into your body, it merges with your consciousness, merges with your body. You're downloading its advanced frequency into you, which is resonating with your deep unconscious. You will likely get fireworks, you'll probably feel a lot. Demonic invocations are amazing. But then, after, many people think, okay, all right, that's done, and then that's done. Okay, I've done the invocation. Okay, it's done now. No, very wrong. Very, very wrong. It's daily life now that you have to keep an eye on. It's now daily life that you have to observe. Okay, and what will happen if you are properly exposing yourself to the current of that given spirit is that it will start to manifest things into your day-to-day life, no matter how big or small, that are there to challenge you in that unique way. Okay, and this can happen internally on the psychological level. But normally, how demonic trials manifest is through, say, external challenges, things that are there to kind of challenge you. Maybe you'll manifest a spiritual teacher who is constantly shattering like your illusions by what the person is saying. Maybe you will manifest one person into your life for like a day who is there to mirror something back to you. Okay, it can get quite extreme. Okay, it can get very extreme, and how extreme it gets is dependent on how willing you are to observe and listen. It's important to realize it. Okay, no daemon wants to re-traumatize you. No daemon wants to keep you in suffering. This is the thing. Okay, people project onto daemons because it's kind of like a suffering competition in the left-hand path. But no daemon wants to keep you in suffering. They want you to liberate yourself realistically, as quickly and as efficiently and as sort of sustainably as possible. So their goal is very much that, to get you there as quickly as possible. And sometimes that can be entirely paradoxical. But if you continue to ignore the trials, particularly if you're getting into qliphothic work, with invocations you have a bit more leeway. Okay, because if you want to stop working with that spirit, you just stop tapping into the current of energy and then that's it. Whereas with, say, like a qliphothic sphere or tunnel, you've opened that part of your body and it's a doorway that can then not be closed once you have opened it. Okay, so it's more extreme in the context of qliphothic sphere working or tunnels or whatever that is. It's more extreme because what you are ignoring and what you are dissociating yourself from is then going to store more in your unconscious, and then it's more likely to bring a re-traumatizing event in. Okay, important to realize, the more you ignore qliphothic trials, the more re-traumatizing situations are going to come in. And it can work with invocations of daemons as well, because when you're bringing that current of energy in on a consistent basis, you're welcoming it as your initiator, at which point it's then going to bring you trials that you can either listen to or dissociate from. And if you dissociate from it, then it's going to put more strain on the body itself. Okay, so demonic trials occur through rupture. Okay, through rupture, something, no matter how big or small, is going to rupture in your day-to-day life to induce a paradoxical liberation process. Obviously, as I mentioned, this will be more extreme when you actually open yourself up to a deeper, more extreme version of it. Like when you're initiating into the qliphoth, you're saying to your soul, I'm ready to do this. Whereas what many people are doing when they're starting is that they're just dabbling at which point their free will isn't really on board with their evolution, and then therefore that's the encounter that they're getting from the spirits. The spirits are then going to mirror that and are only going to give you what you put in. Okay, so if you're somebody who has not actually noticed any demonic trials, if you're someone who works with demons and you haven't noticed the trials in day-to-day life, then I would advise that you reassess your intention for working with these spirits, okay? And really treat them with respect. Start interacting with the current with a specific intention, okay? With a specific intention of, even if it's just interacting with the spirit and seeing what it has to teach you and help you to embody, even that is an intention alone. Yeah, having a set intention when interacting with these spirits, in my view, is extremely important. And if you're just dabbling, where it's like, oh, just this current, that current, that current, I think I've used the example before. It's like going into an ice cream parlor and asking to try all of the ice cream, when in reality, like, you're going to get more benefits from just having one ice cream, realistically speaking. Yeah, it's like going in, getting a spoon of every single ice cream, and then all of a sudden you've got lots of different flavors mixing around in your stomach, and then you're not actually getting the full taste of what a given flavor or given current of energy in this context is actually going to do for you. So demonic trials are going to depend on your openness to actually receive that evolution. And if you are not open, then the daemons can get flaky. Yeah, if you're flaky with yourself, if you're flaky with your own evolution, then the daemons are going to be flaky towards you. This is the thing, okay? It's like, for example, if you're like, okay, I'm not feeling much from this invocation. Oh, I'm going to move on to a different spirit then. I'm going to move on to a different spirit then. It's like, that's flaky. Okay, like, it's if you're moving from spirit to spirit to spirit to spirit to spirit aimlessly with no real intention, then that is dabbling flaky shit. And the daemons are then going to mirror that back to you, okay? Because they work through paradox, they work through mirrors. They're going to be like, okay, so if you're not going to put that intention in, then I'm going to mirror that back to you and then see if you remain in that cycle. And most people will just remain in that cycle. Okay, so if you're interacting with a spirit, do so with a set intention. Okay, if you're going into the cliff off, understand what you are signing yourself up for, and understand that you're going to go through very extreme trials that are going to be manifested in day-to-day life that are there to rupture more so than just a regular invocation of a spirit. Okay, so if you're doing invocations of a demonic entity, my advice is to really sit with that current of energy first before invoking it and understand why you are wanting to invoke it in the first place. Okay, and explore it. Okay, understand it. Understand, okay, if I'm going to open myself up, open up my life to the trials of this current of energy, then I need to understand, why I'm actually going into it in the first place. Okay, and there's going to be multiple different intentions. But then my advice is then to find a daemon that represents something that you want to master and then work with that spirit consistently until you have attained that result. It's not that difficult. And then the more you invoke that spirit, the more of that current of energy is being welcomed into your life and the more trials you are going to receive. Okay, it's really that simple. And again, as I mentioned, the trials don't have to be massive, they don't have to be completely life-defining, but they do have to rupture something. They do have to rupture some kind of comfort because the daemons are not there to validate you and keep you in comfort. Okay, what the daemons are there to do is provoke you to grow, help you to grow. They're going to dissolve what needs to be dissolved to help you to evolve, to help you to grow, and ultimately help you to align with your true will. Okay, it's entirely paradoxical. So understand that the invocation slash ritual is only the first point of interaction, and dependent on your intention, the transmutation process that unfolds after is the important thing with the spirit. Okay, is the very important thing with the spirit. Okay, and being willing to interact and use your free will to open yourself up to more evolution and things like that, because the issue that many people have is, okay, I'm interacting with this spirit. Oh, it's not really attaining the results that I want. Or, okay, I'm going to move to another spirit then. And then there's no consciousness or real sort of respect for the current of energy that they're tapping into. And then the daemon is just going to show up in a very flaky way. It's just going to be like, oh, it's just a bit of sensations and that was it. Or, oh, just a bit of that. And then it's not going to manifest in day-to-day life because you're not actually committed to embodying that current of energy. Okay, so the more committed you are to actually use the current that you are tapping into to properly evolve, the more trials are going to come in. And how you know that these trials are working is if they are destabilizing your sense of self. Okay, your false sense of self. If they are basically thrusting you out of your comfort zone, moving you into situations that you are not actually necessarily comfortable with on the surface, but are actually going to help your evolution. Things that require discernment, where it's like, okay, I'm going to discern what I'm hearing here. I'm going to discern what this encounter is doing. Things like that. You know, daemons like want you to do the work, and if you're not willing to do the work, then you're just tapping into the energy for no reason. You know, and you're tapping into the energy for superficial purposes and masking it as evolution. Okay, so understand that these trials are immensely transformative, and when you go through this rupture, you're going to experience immense elevations in consciousness. Okay, many people find that when they first start interacting with daemons, it's like the daemons do make it a bit easier upon the first encounter or the first few encounters because they want to show you that they are real. Okay, and it's actually beneficial for your soul's evolution to receive fireworks in that context. But then what many people find is that once that initial excitement is gone, then they have to actually take a kind of back seat. They're still there, they're observing you, they are mentoring you through your process, but they have to take a more passive role because you actually have to be the one to pursue your own divinity. This is the whole point. Okay, daemons want you to pursue your own divinity, and if you want that genuine evolution and you want that genuine individuation, you have to work for it. You have to challenge yourself, and you have to be willing to be challenged on a regular basis. Otherwise, don't bother interacting with daemons. If you don't want to challenge yourself, if you want to stay within your narcissistic bubble, then, you know, don't bother working with daemons. Okay, because daemons are going to encourage you to pop that bubble and become more open and vulnerable with yourself. And that is the role of daemonic trials, to help you to burst that narcissistic bubble, master your separation, continue to be challenged into your evolution so that you can effectively evolve and take full ownership and accountability. Okay, so to summarize, daemonic trials happen through rupture and the challenging of your ego. And if you are not open to that and you dissociate yourself from it, then this work can either be entirely destabilizing or it will just get extremely boring because you're being flaky with your process, flaky with the daemons, and therefore the spirits are being flaky with you. It really is that simple. So only work with these currents, and if you really want to get the most out of these currents, then challenge yourself. Okay, take yourself out of your comfort zone, interact with the world, interact with people, do things that are going to break the karma that you have generated. Okay, this is what this work is all about. Okay, that's everything that I need to say on this topic. Be sure to check out my membership programs if they are of interest to you. First, two links within the description of this video. But for now, thank you guys. Hit like and subscribe if this video was helpful to you, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you.